Hello, everyone. Hi, Mr.
Hello.
And hi, Nick. Lovely to see you. And hello to everybody that's watching. And thank you very much for the way that you're showing such interest in what we're doing. And obviously, you're loving our guests, and you're going to love our guest today, Nick Warren. So before I introduce Nick, I'm going to give a tiny little bit of a teaser about what we're going to be talking about. And then I'm going to have a chat with the business blondes about what their week's been like, and with Nick. So Nick is MD of Stories Mean Business, and he's a terrific guy. We all know him very well. And in fact, as you'll hear in a little while, he's sort of starting to change our lives in little ways, which is very exciting. Little ways that have become big ways in a way. Nick reinvented himself from exiting his business that he started in 1997 and then sold in 2018. He's also an author, which is sort of a big passion, and this is a big book that Thomas and I loved reading last summer. We read it to each other around pools and things. You remember when we could do things like that? And so he's also a fictional writer, which is exciting. But the main crux of what he loves to do is help people to find their story. So we're going to dig deeper into that, which I am really excited about. Also runs Story Hacker, an incredible podcast. But before we go on to that, hi, Kim.
Hey, lovely.
Hi. So how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been good, thank you. It's been one of those weeks where you just have to, I guess, reflect and decide what are the things that are really, really important and how do we get focused on those. And thrown into that, there's been some getting ready, I guess, for the upcoming winter. Poor Scarly Bear, bless her, this morning had to go for her flu jab. So I had her running around with me first thing, helping me re-dye my hair, get rid of the grey. So got her being a budding hairdressing apprentice at age 3.5, which is a fairly good start, I reckon.
Oh, that's good fun. I love the way you and Scarlett are such a team. It's beautiful. I love it. And Caroline, what about you?
Well, I try to cram every single ring, every bit of joy, bliss, wonderment I possibly could out of all the days before lockdown. Thus, going to Kew Gardens for the day. Yes, bring on the autumn. Going to Mayfair for cocktails, a fish supper, and yes, more cocktails. Just to do everything that I possibly could before this, which we won't say the L word right now. So yeah, I had an awesome week. Actually need a month off to recover. Thank you.
You're fully entertained. I actually know you a bit too well, Caroline. I think in about 2 days you'll be crawling around trying to find someone.
Maybe.
Sam, how about you?
Well, how do I follow that, Caroline? Yeah, this week has been absolutely manic, I have to say. I've not had time to think about the actual things that are going on around me this week. It has been manic, but all in a good way. My internet's gone down at home. Yay, just when I need it the most. The dog was sick. Yay, just when I want to do cool. But, this is all things that happen every week to all of us. So I'm in the office today, all by myself, and it's great. But actually, it's busy out there. The roads are busy. The offices are busy. I'm loving the vibe this week, actually. I'm loving the vibe.
Yeah. And Nick, what's your week been like before we get to really know you?
My week's been really good, Penny. It's last week I finished a couple of really pretty big projects, and I had that moment where you just get to sit back and enjoy the fact you've done some work and do some reading and work on my own stuff and what have you. And then just yesterday, just as it was getting to the point where I was thinking, right, I better start working again, better start thinking about things again. I got a call from a client, a really good client. They wanted to give me another big project of work, really exciting, some copywriting, some storytelling. So I was like, yes, that's a win, big win.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's just so wonderful because we've all been on a bit of a journey with you to see how you've got such momentum in your business now, and it's really exciting.
Yeah.
So let me think about my week. Caroline, we talked about it last week. It gave me some really good thoughts around happiness when we had lunch, our first ever lunch together. And that's what I've been sort of really determined to dig into. And I had a really interesting conversation with a new client who, my goodness, he has been through so much, included at one stage in the 80s, he owned 3 pubs in Brighton and got stabbed in his chest. And we ended up talking about guy was a really happy, bright guy. We ended up talking about that subject of adversity and how it's incredible, actually, when you go through adversity, you come through it, how much the world looks so beautiful. And I suppose that's something I've been really reflecting on, because some people will be feeling life's really hard at the moment. And I think the fighting spirit in us all is amazing. And I think they'll look back and they'll realize how much richer their life is through the adversity they've gone through, and how easily you can actually find happy moments. Every time I have my first cup of tea in the morning, I think about Carol Ann and how she told me that was the first happy moment. So you're always with me in bed with my tea, Carol.
I get around, don't I?
I do. And I do try to get dressed before I have my cup of tea, so you don't feel too pervy. But yeah, so I think, there's happiness all around us, isn't there? We can find these moments, and now is the time to do that. And Carol Ann, what you do in the CC Club and everything, and the way you spread that happiness is a great example of it.
Well, it's not easy, because we're naturally, our default position is negativity and what's the worst that can happen. But there's also the other side of it. What's the best that can happen?
Yeah.
We forget that sometimes too.
Yeah, somebody told me, and I think it's quite interesting, because I always like the science behind the brain. And I was told that we're actually programmed to notice the negative and the threats 4 times more than to notice the good.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's because, when we think about caveman Penny, that's quite a horrible thought. Although I'm quite hairy at the moment, I have to say. So when you think about caveman Penny, she had to be watching out all the time for what was going to be our threat. And so I think now I know that. I think, okay, go away those thoughts, because I know that's what I'm programmed to listen to, but I'm actually going to look for all the good. So I quite like the science of how the brain works. So lovely, Nick. Hello.
Hello. Yes. Hi.
Very exciting to have you here. And it's such a lot we could talk about, and we're going to try and drill it into probably about 15 minutes.
Yes.
And I know for the listeners, you will have a lot of impact around the passion you have for what you do, around helping people unlock their story. But I want us to go back, because you reinvented yourself, and there are going to be loads and loads of people listening today who are probably thinking, is this my great opportunity to reinvent myself? So can you just give us a little bit of an idea and tell us about that transition?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about 5 years ago. By then I'd owned a web development company for around 20 years. Successful. We had clients around the world. In many ways, I'd done that thing. I'd done the thing we all think we want, which is to create a good business. But I wasn't very happy, and a few things happened in my life at that point. My daughter was ill. My dad had a little mini stroke. The one that really got me actually was the lady who sold me life insurance died in her chair at her office, aged 50. And I was sitting there, I was 45 then, thinking, that's 5 years' time, and if I don't change what I'm doing now, I might never get the chance. Because one of the weird things about web development is, because it's such an arms race, almost all the work you've done is gone. Because websites get updated every 2 or 3 years. So, my achievement was to build a business and, look after the family and all that kind of thing. But I wasn't that happy, I guess. And so what I decided to do was step back from the business. I promoted one of the guys who'd worked for me to run it. And I thought, I'm going to write a novel, which is actually a dream I had, so long ago when I was a kid, when we could still dream. Thank you. There it is. Yeah, that's the first one. When you could really dream when you were young, when you were a teenager or early 20s or something, when life actually did feel like it stretched out. I thought, well, I'm going to have that again. And I was fortunate, because of the work I'd done, that I was in a position to do that. And a really interesting thing happened, actually, I'm a bit of a geek. So as I got into the kind of the geekiness of storytelling and learning about how it all works, writing these thrillers, so many times I thought, do you know what? I did that to build the business. And I did that when I spoke to a client, and I did that when I wrote that email. And, when you begin to learn that certain things trigger chemical changes in someone's brain, a cliffhanger, will trigger dopamine, which will help people remember things and pay attention to things and all of that. And I began to think, now I understand why I built my business the way I did, because it was a bit weird, because in the 20 years time, I should have said that we never advertised once in the whole 20 years. It was all word of mouth, all referral. marketing really, but it was all stories. It was the stories that we were telling. It was the stories our clients were telling about us, and that built the business. So I'm there writing my first novel. I'm on the third now, but when I was writing the first one, I was thinking, do you know what? The leaders, the businesses and the brands that we love are telling better stories. That's quite interesting. And then the next thought that came along, it was a little while later, was, hold on, that means if we can help people tell better stories, they'll get better lives. And that was really the kind of the kernel, if you like, for me to start this Stories Mean Business company. And now I guess to help people tell better stories, through the podcast you mentioned, Story Hacker, or webinars, or I do it for them with one-to-one consultancy.
So Nick, so I've known you lot for now 18 months, would it be?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you lucky thing.
I know. I've loved it. I have to say, I love it. I could listen to you all day. You've got a real soothing voice, actually. But
yeah, my wife goes to sleep a lot too when I'm talking.
No comment. So when I first met you, we were in a mastermind session, and it was day one, and I'd never met you before. I didn't know what you did. And it was that moment, that awkward moment where everybody has to introduce themselves for the first time. And we'd gone around the room, and I was almost last. And I remember everybody had real profound stories to share. And I remember it coming towards me and I knew that my time was coming. I was thinking, oh my God, I am so boring compared to this lot in the room. I remember launching into this, hi, my name's Sam. My story is I don't have a story. And I can just imagine then you going, rubbish, you've got a story. And we've had many conversations since about it. And I still believe I don't have a story. But my question, I suppose, is why are they so important for business owners? Why do we need to tell our story? What is it about the story that you're so good at and I can't find?
Well, so you're right. You do have a story. Anyone who's got problems, and we all do, has got stories, because that's really what stories are about. You want something, there are things in your way, you go get it. That's the sort of fundamental nature of a story. The reason it matters, though, is because we're all in business. We're all making an offer. We're all offering a product or a service that will change people's lives. So the story that they tell is, what will my life be like if I take Sam up on the business coaching or the mastermind or whatever. And that could be really, really important for them. But one of the reasons why your story is so important is because they want to know that you can deliver on your promises. So when we tell powerful stories about ourselves, about our business, about our experience and our pain and all that kind of stuff, what we do is we bring people closer to us. We show them that they have something in common with us, that we have been in their shoes, so to speak. And so it can be really, really, really powerful, particularly if you're kind of a personality driven company, or you're like I am. I'm an entrepreneur of one, a company of one. Many of us are. It can be a really good way to build that empathy and build that attention and that trust. And if you have attention, connection and trust, you've got action very often. So that'd be really important, really important.
You're so right, because people are buying me, aren't they? They're buying into me, so they need to understand my story, what drives me, and whether or not we're going to connect as coach and client. So you talk a lot of sense, Nick.
But one of the things about what you're saying, though, is you haven't got a story, because so many of us think about these things as, well, I've done all these things, I've done all this, I've climbed this big mountain. But if we go back to the problems that we have, these are often the things where we can find the kind of grit that kind of makes the pearl, and that's the things that bring us closer to people.
Yeah,
it is hard to. It is hard sometimes to reveal your story. I think, because you are going into the point of vulnerability. And when I did my book, I did that. Thomas and I went on a life journey together, but I shared it as my story because I was putting my filter on it when I did my book. But then Thomas, I bought for Christmas last year a session with you, and actually we turned it into this. I turned it into a photo book, and every page in it was his story. It was phenomenal, and it was the first time Thomas publicised online. You know, he properly took the mask off. I hate to say that when we're all having to wear masks at the moment, but probably took the mask off of what our background was, and shared it with his filter as a man and what it meant to him to go through, you know, the highs of Academy and then the massive lows.
Mm.
And I know that was also incredibly therapeutic for him to do that with you. The impact it had when people read it was amazing.
Yeah, leaving aside the business benefits, there's really good research to show that. I mean, you talk a lot about mental illness, don't you, Penny? And the fact is that the quality of the story we can tell about ourselves appears to have, and it's not surprising when you think about it, but it appears to have a direct impact on our mental health, on our sense of self, on our self-worth, on all the things that, you know, help us get out of bed in the morning. So, you know, you talked about vulnerability. Well, so one of the biggest challenges I have with my clients is helping them to open up. You know, and it's not about, you know, being a sob story or, you know, writing a soap opera or something, but it is, you know, we all understand, I hope everyone watching this understands that businesses need to communicate in a human way, you know, and we understand that, but so much of what passes for human kind of writing or, you know, messaging in business is that kind of slightly chirpy, slightly upbeat, which isn't real either. So it is by showing the lows that we can show the highs, and you know, particularly personal point of view.
I wanted to share something because Nick interviewed me for my About Me page, and I have to say the vulnerability factor was 10 out of 10. The excruciation factor was buttock clenchingly agonizing, and I was thinking, why did I'm actually paying this guy for this. I wouldn't even say this stuff to my confessor, let alone this famous writer. And then we had an hour and a half, and then I had a day, and I thought, do you know, I haven't been entirely honest with Nick. I've got to phone him back and say,
right, yeah,
there were a few ugly dark points I didn't actually say, and then we got it out there, and now I own my story. It's very long. I thought no one's going to read this, and it has a caveat at the top. This is a 12-minute read or something, but you know, some people want to read to the bottom, and then we put a golden egg at the bottom. Thanks for reading this. Now you get a free half hour. But it's changed my business, Nick, because now people know me, warts and all, dark sides, upsides and down. It's not all about, as you say, happy, I'm so good, I'm so successful. It's I've been there. This is what you're getting to. So thank you so much.
The great thing is that it's a fantastic story and should have been said as well. But I loved reading it. Absolutely loved it. And Nick, obviously, you know, the way that you put words down on paper is absolutely flawless. But your story, Caroline, deserves to be out there because it is brilliant.
Thank you, Helen. Helen, who's watching, says marketing is not about the stuff you make, but the stories you tell. Seth Godin says that. It's really good. And owning your story makes selling what you're doing so much more easier because you're in your values. You're being you. You're being your brand.
Yeah, and there's pretty good science to show that stories are how we apply value to the world, you know, because if you look, talking about the science as you were earlier on, like brain chemistry, Penny, our brains can't cope with the world as it is. It's just too much of it. So you're not thinking about the chair you're sat on, you're not thinking about the temperature of your left hand because you don't need to, right? But when we tell the right story, we bring things into focus, and it's always a summary in some sense. But in business, we want to bring the story that is most going to serve our clients and serve us. Yeah. And one of the ways in which we navigate the world is by defining what's valuable and what's not valuable. And we do that through the stories we're telling, whether it's the overall arc of your career or the fact that, you know, it's the morning and you need your cup of tea. You know, there's the state you are now, there's where you want to be, and there's the obstacles or whatever in between. It's all that story structure.
And it's the beautiful thing is that it then brings towards you the sort of people that you want to work with. You know, when I look at your faces here, I didn't know you before I told my story, and you didn't know how to trust me. And now every single client that I have knows me totally, and I don't have to pretend to be somebody else. And they resonate with a lot of the stuff. So I think it helps you design a beautiful life around you with the sort of people you want to work with. What were you going to say, Kim? Sorry, I think you were.
No, I was going to say, I know, Nick, we've chatted about this before, but the one thing that unites us all, despite the fact that we struggle with diversity and inclusion, is that we all learn and we all teach through stories, don't we? We've been doing it since the cavemen. And I know, you were very kind. You did mine. And I know some of the feedback I got from people was, I'm 1,000 times more likely to hire you as a result of watching that video and hearing your story than I was before, because actually, to your point, it's getting people to understand you've been to some of the lows as well as some of the highs. So how do you see that we could use stories even more to help us break down the barriers of diversity and inclusion?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Well, I mean, the obvious answer is that when you shared your story or Carol Ann shared hers, the pain and the difficulties are the same as anyone, any race, whatever. We all, we're much more alike, obviously, than we are different. And I think when we tell our story, we become an individual. And this is part of what you were saying. When people look at your video, they see Kim. They don't see just a smiley face, another smiley face, or another, few set of words about what you do. They see Kim. And, I think for me, the best way to get to the world we all want to get to is if we're as individual as we can be, because then we stop being in these groups, this race, this type of person, this sexuality, whatever it is, and we start becoming individuals. And then we start to see all the little hooks that, join us together. Like in my story, I might talk about the business, or I might talk about sailing across the Atlantic, or I might talk about losing my dad recently, for example. And all those things, they're all these things we put out there give us little hooks for other people who might have similar experiences or have been through the same kind of thing. And I think making us more individual is the way forward for that, obviously. And stories, if we tell them well, can really do that.
Brilliant. Sorry, no, that is brilliant advice. And I think there is so much more that we can do, isn't there, to recognize that is it. We are all individuals and we are all equal as individuals. I think the more we can embrace that, the better.
Also, as a solo entrepreneur, that is our selling point. We are unique, we are different, we can be as quirky, rebellious, strange, as niche as we possibly like. And that's what you're getting. We're not John Lewis to everyone. We're not Apple. We are as quirky and weird as we want to be. And some people like quirky and weird, and we need to flag that up. And people will buy that, and have the courage to tell your story and be you, be the brand.
Yeah.
It's
what's just sort of triggered in my head is that so many people now are building community around their brands. And Nick is coming in as an expert into our new BIP 100 community. Because one of the big challenges when you're building a community is to get people to take those masks off and tell their story. So I think, anybody out there who is building community, you should actually think about getting Nick in as someone to chat to your group about the power of that. Because community building is huge. But the groups on Facebook, the groups on LinkedIn, etc., and beyond. So I absolutely love that. I think I need to progress though onto now, and I think it will come back to you, Nick, because I know you're going to share a tip. But I was looking at the week ahead for us all, and sharing some thoughts about how we can give a tip to people about how to have a great week. Have you got one, Kim?
Yeah. So I would say my biggest tip is to focus on what you can do. It can be so easy right now to think about all the things that we can't control or that we can't do. And all they'll actually do is zap your energy and take away your power. So focus instead on what are the things that you can do, and then take action, because you'll change your vantage point, you'll raise your energy, and you'll have a much better week.
Yeah, I love that, actually. Almost keep a log of it, yeah? Keep a log of when you notice something you're doing that's really great and you're in your flow. Yeah, it's brilliant. Carol Ann, have you got a thought for?
Yeah, I was at a great networking event this morning called the Sapphire Business Club, and Debbie was telling us that 85,000 businesses have been launched this year alone. So I think, a lot of people say, oh, the time isn't right. Jupiter isn't aligning with Mars. I'm not feeling right. I haven't got the good hair day. You have to just get on with it. And the fact that 85,000 people or businesses registered at Company House this year of all years is a great thing. And so don't hang around. Don't wait for the sun and the moon to be in alignment. Get out there. If you have an idea for a business, get on with it. The world needs your business right now.
Yeah, and look at your business, Caroline. I mean, your academy. Oh, I need some water. Got too excited then. You've had the biggest academy group, haven't you, ever?
Yeah, because we've done it online, so it's allowed more people to come in. It's not easy, but it's you know, you have to think of where can I go with my business? How can I make it work? So, you know, there are rainbows amongst the clouds too, but don't wait. You know, do everything you want to do. Do it now. None of us know how long we've got. Sorry, that's been a bit gloomy, but live in the now. Get on with it. And don't keep waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment never comes. If you've got an idea, run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what, you know, if you're in the skills world, for example, like you are, where you're helping people to have skills and you're helping people to become life coaches, you know, you see that people are spending money on getting skills, aren't they?
People want real change at the moment. They don't want what's gone before. If they're locked down for anything, sorry, I mentioned the L word, but it's like reassessment of life, stop taking, I don't want more of the same.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's brilliant. Sam, what about you?
Well, I think I'm just going to follow on from these lovely ladies, and it's about fun. You know, we just have to be positive. We have to be upbeat. We have to almost have that word with ourselves every morning. And, you know, like Caroline just said, 85,000 businesses have launched this year alone. You know, everybody's written off this year. We're talking about the COVID kids. We're talking about, you know, we're already looking at next year. I mean, we're in the first week of November. Let's just enjoy the journey. You know, everybody says be present. Well, let's be present for the rest of this year and have fun. You know, we can all take a leaf out of Caroline's book because she has fun. And every Thursday, Caroline reminds me that life is there for living, you know. So absolutely, Caroline. I took a leaf out of your book last night, went out with the girls. We huddled outside in a pub garden underneath the heater in our coats and our scarves and our gloves. But we shared a bottle of wine, you know, we shared stories, we had fun. And it was brilliant.
Yeah, and it's good because you can always blame me, Sam, for the hangover. Always told me to do this.
Always will.
Blame Caroline for every hangover. So I want to say two things. First of all, I want to say we all need to try and make sure that we spend our money this Christmas on small businesses. You know, I think that's really, really important. In fact, I've created a little folder in my Google browser with all the local shops that are now doing click and collect, the small businesses around me. And I'm really going to have that as my default place to look for presents. And so, you know, we have got to stand behind the small businesses in this country. And a lot of them now, a lot of gift shops are doing click and collect. They've really invested in their websites for the first time. So let's get behind them. And then just very quickly, I just want to keep on that happy thing. You know, tomorrow when you wake up, think about that cup of tea. Think about Caroline. Bring her into bed with you, like I said earlier. Having that cup of tea, note it as a happy moment. Note your coffee as a happy moment. Notice the lovely chats you have. Just keep remembering that your happiness is made up of tiny things, not these great big things that you're waiting to achieve.
Yeah.
So, Nick, I want to finish with you. And what's your thoughts on going forward for people? What's the thought?
So the thing that I see most problematic is people don't carry on enough. They don't keep going long enough. And I think, you know, one of the things is building a business, building a brand. It is hard work. You know, we all understand that, all of us here, and it takes time. And it's too easy to get distracted by the shiny new thing. What you should do is keep going, keep working, and it will come. It will come. And I think that's a really good thing to remember, that it's just around the corner.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, keep consistent with what you love doing and keep believing in it. Yeah. So I pass back to you, lovely Kim. Kim Adele, tell us how people can keep in touch with us.
Absolutely. Thank you all, and thank you, Nick. What an amazing guest you've been. As always, we know you would. It's always a delight. If you've enjoyed it as much as we have, we'd love to see you next week. We're live at 1 o'clock every Thursday on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook. And you can also see past episodes at www.businessblondes.tv, where there's an option to also apply to be a guest. If you'd like to be in Nick's chair, then please do get in touch. We'd love to chat to you. And in the interim, stay positive, stay safe, stay happy. See you next week.
Bye.